Hello class, today this video we're going to cover homework 5. I will give you more support to complete homework 5. If you have not look at the less support version of homework 5, please have a look at it. Maybe you will be able to do it without even watching this video. Okay, so this homework 5, we're going to continue about the reasons for the Cold War. First part of the question A, I told you to cancel out. I wouldn't need you to do because it's kind of like homework 4. And this is question B. Okay, I have annotated a lot of things, including a guiding question. So if you have not looked at the less support version, have a look at it. If you can answer some of these guiding questions in red, then maybe you don't need to watch this whole video. Okay, but in this video, I'm going to explain a little bit more what are some of the guiding questions and teach you how to find the answers perhaps from your notes. Okay, because for question B, okay, it's about a hypothesis essay, a 12-mark essay, which involves giving you a statement and asking you how far do you agree. And the first thing you must remember when you answer these two questions, you must give both sides of the statement. You must agree with the statement, that's one paragraph, and you must disagree with the statement and come up with another reason. Okay, so the statement is the Cold War was solely about clash of ideology. I've highlighted here that clash of ideology is the first factor. So you want to first agree why the clash of ideology led to the Cold War. Okay, the Cold War here is the question focus. So what is clash of ideology and how did it lead to Cold War? And after that second paragraph, you need a second factor. The Cold War, besides being about the clash of ideology, what else was it about? In other words, was there other things that sort of led to the Cold War? Were they fighting over other things besides a clash in ideology? Okay, so you need to have one factor, agree, is clash of ideology. Second factor, disagree, it was about something else that led to the Cold War. Okay, so that is the big task you need to do. Okay, so let's look at one paragraph. I'm not going to give you the answer, but I'm going to tell you roughly where you can look. Okay, I want you to try. So if you look at the first paragraph, okay, we kind of plan out the answer here a little bit. Yes, you start off by saying, I agree with the statement because the Cold War was about or was solely about a clash of ideology. I kind of repeat the statement here, right? Ideological difference between the superpower put them at odds against each other before the outbreak of World War II. So this is your first line. And you need to give more supporting details. So for example, you mentioned that it's about a clash of ideology. What does it mean when it has a clash of ideology? Are they having the same ideology or having a different ideology? Or does the ideology challenge each other? Mention it in your supporting details. Tell me more. What was the clash of ideology about? Which ideology clashed with which ideology? Which country adopted which ideology? The US was adopting what ideology? The USSR, what ideology did they adopt? Okay, and did these two ideologies have a similar viewpoint? Okay, what was the difference in the two ideology? Communism, what did communism believe in? The USA, what did they believe in? Is it capitalism, democracy? How is it different from communism? So you want to describe, give supporting details about your factor, which is clash of ideology. So you tell me what is the clash, what is ideology, what is the difference in the ideology. So you give me more facts here. So where can you find this point? Okay, you can find it in your notes. I'll just briefly show you where in your notes. Your notes, this is your chapter 1 notes, right? Is roughly organized into pre-World War I. There are some factors. During World War II, there are some factors. And post-World War II, there are a few more factors. So you want to find which part of the notes talk about a difference in ideology. Many parts of the notes will mention ideology, but one part of the notes, you can straight out say, a different ideology. The USA had one kind of ideology, the communism had one kind of ideology. So you can use this rule, no problem. Okay, take some of the relevant lines. But you realize that a lot of the factors below, even let's say during World War II, you can talk about some difference in ideology as well. For example, you see there's one point here that says the Allies will realize that strong Germany will be a barrier for communist expansion. Okay, so even here they are talking about them being a different ideology. The communists, they're very worried about the communists. Okay, and so there are many parts of the note. So the essay is all not so straightforward, like say, oh, all must take from here, the first point, or the first point called different ideology. If you remember a lot of the things in recent times, like during World War or post-World War, you can see a lot of things talking about difference in ideology. Let me give you another example. For example, here under containment, you can see that the US, they wanted to control USSR. They wanted, for example, let's look at the Truman Doctrine. They wanted to prevent communism from spreading. Even at a point here, you can see they are talking about why they want to stop communism from spreading. Okay, and same thing, if you look at the Soviet Union side, you can see that they were trying to, let's see, the government in these countries, the Soviet Union was trying to implement communist ideals in Europe. All right, so they have a different ideology. They fight over a different ideology. Comecon versus Truman Doctrine versus Marshall Plan. So these examples can also be used to talk about a clash in ideology. Okay, so let me go back to the homework. Okay, so when you find your answer in the notes, okay, it doesn't always have to come from one paragraph, come from one sub-factor. Sometimes many different sub-factors can be used because they are all talking about what is a clash of ideology. So you have to look at a statement and ask yourself, when I look at a statement, this keyword clash of ideology, which of the main factors can you use? Just now I got 1 ABCD, 2 ABCD, 3 ABCD. Which one of these points can you use? So sometimes it's not straightforward. So you need to memorize the big factors. And then when you look at a keyword like clash of ideology, ask yourself, which of the big factors can you use? Okay. So after you describe what is the clash of ideology, tell me, okay, why will it cause the Cold War? They're asking the Cold War was about clash of ideology. So you have to link, how does clash of ideology, what does it got to do with the Cold War? So you want to explain maybe, what does it mean when you say there's a Cold War? Okay, if the country have a different ideology, a clash in ideology, why would there be tension between the countries? And why would tension lead to Cold War? Okay, so you can say something like, this means when they have different ideology, the countries will have a lot of tension with each other because they do not agree with each other, or they think that the other party is wrong. And it will lead to a worsening of the relationship, and they will have a lot of conflicts in the future, leading to a Cold War. Okay, so you make a link from how clash of ideology can eventually be linked to the Cold War. Okay, so this is the first paragraph. Okay, feel free to pause the video and finish this first paragraph before you watch the remaining, where I'm going to talk about paragraph 2. All right. Now, for paragraph 2, just now I mentioned, you have to, they ask you how far do you agree? So you have to give me why you agree and why you disagree. So you must also suggest the Cold War was not just about a different ideology, it was about clash in other things. So what are these other things? You can see the teacher gave this statement, the Cold War was a result of action by USA and Soviet in Europe in the post-war years. So I want to add on a little bit. Besides fighting over the different ideology, were there other things they were fighting over? Okay, the USSR and USA, what were they fighting, especially in the immediate post-war years? At that point, maybe it was not so much about ideology, but they're fighting over things like territories. They're fighting over things like influence over the other countries. So all these things were what they fought over. So it's not just because you're communism, I must fight you because I'm a democratic country. It's not simply because we are believe in different things, but they generally believe you are a communist country, you are USA, but you are generally out to get me or control me, prevent me from becoming stronger. They're fighting over influence, fighting over power, fighting over territories all over the world. So it's no longer just a clash of ideology, but they are fighting for over certain benefits like territories, like power, like influence over the countries. Okay, so you maybe want to mention 2 or 3 things we show how they fought over these things. And then you have to explain if they're fighting over this thing. Again, why will it be tension? Why will it lead to a Cold War? What does a Cold War even mean? So you have to link back. They are fighting over what and how they lead to the Cold War. Okay. Let me change the screen again to the notes to show you how I might find the points for paragraph 2. Okay. So let me share the notes again. Okay. So just now the notes, they mentioned some of the things that they fought over. You can see it in post-World War II. So maybe I want to go to the section on post-World War II in the notes. And you can see that they were fighting over so many things. For example, they were competing for influence. Okay, so the two countries have a Cold War, maybe because the USA wanted to influence many countries, the Soviet Union wanted to influence many countries, and if you can only listen to the US or listen to the USSR, so they're fighting over different influences. So maybe you can use some of the points here. You can also talk about Soviet satellite states, because what does the satellite states mean? It means that the USSR wanted to have all these countries that are surrounding the USSR and that can kind of protect and defend the Soviet Union. On the other hand, the USA find this very suspicious, very aggressive, because it looks like you are converting all these countries on your side. And if they are supporting USSR, they may be a threat to the USA and his friends. Okay. You can also talk about containment, some of these points. For example, they are competing with influence. The USA is trying to influence countries by giving them money, giving them financial aid through the Marshall Plan. The Soviet Union also wants to do the same by giving money through the Comecon, the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance. So they are fighting over influence, fighting over followers, not just because they are a communist country, I fight with you, but because you are a communist country and you are a threat, you are stealing influence from me, you're stealing territories from me. Okay, so these are some of the points you can use under post-World War II. You can use from a lot of places, but you can even mention, for example, during World War II, let's say we talk about delay in Second Front. This thing has nothing to do with difference in ideology, but why did it lead to the Cold War? Because the USSR thought the USA was playing it for a fool. They did not want to come and rescue the Soviet Union when Germany was attacking the Soviet Union. As a result, they felt very betrayed. There was tension purely because they felt betrayed. The USSR may not even be a communist country. Let's say the USSR is not a communist country. You are under attack by Germany. And if USA didn't come and save you in time, even though you may have the same ideology, but you can still have a lot of conflict, a lot of tension because of this incident where they failed to come in and save you in time. Okay, so you can say they're fighting because the Cold War is because of tension, because of betrayal, because of distrust over what happened during World War II. So that can be a paragraph 2 factor in itself. Okay, so there are many factors you can use, but you need to learn to discern which factor is about clash of ideology, which factors are talking about things that are not about ideology. For example, betrayal, fighting over influence. So there are many, many reasons or many ways we can look at the Cold War. Okay, it's not just communism versus capitalism or communism versus democracy. It's really also about two countries that don't like each other for many other reasons. So you need to pick what are some of the differences or conflict that they have from the notes. Okay, so I shared with you how you can use your notes already. So describe some of the things that they're fighting over for besides ideology and explain how you lead to a Cold War. Okay, use maybe 2 or 3 examples, and each example use about 2 examples, and each example write it in about 2 or 3 sentences. I think it's a very solid description really. Okay, you can use your notes for that, but like I said previously, you can rewrite it in your own words even better, because you force yourself to understand and use your own words, and you'll remember better in the future. Okay, so give that a try, don't just copy the points. Okay, and last but not least, this one is kind of optional, but I encourage you to try. Okay, overall, do you want to agree with the statement or disagree with the statement more? Okay, the statement, I refresh your memory, is saying they're claiming that the Cold War is purely or solely about clash of ideology, nothing else. Okay, this kind of statement is always very easy to disagree, because when they say it's solely, sometimes it's a very bold statement and it's very easy to counter it. So there are two possible ways to write. You can agree or disagree more. If you choose to agree that the Cold War is solely about a clash of ideology, okay, you need to look at paragraph 2 and find some reason to put it down. For example, paragraph 2, you say they were fighting over territories, fighting over influence, fighting over because they were backstabbed or during World War II. Okay, you need to explain a bit more. Maybe these other things are ultimately still about ideology. For example, you talk about the two countries, they are fighting over influence in Europe after the war. Is it purely because they were fighting over influence? Were they fighting over influence because they have a fundamentally different ideology to begin with? In other words, the USSR, why did they have to fight with USA over influence in the first place? Is it because they have different ideology? They are in two different groups, two different alliances. That's why they have to fight for influence. What I'm trying to say is, if you can prove that ultimately all the things that they're fighting for, whether influence or territories, right, is ultimately caused by a difference in ideology, then you can safely agree that the Cold War is solely about a clash of ideology. Okay, that means you are going to link it all, attribute it back all about the difference in ideology. This is the root of all the whole problems. Then you can say it's Cold War about this clash of ideology. Or you can even choose to disagree the statement. So you have to do the reverse. So for example, in paragraph 2, we said they are fighting over territories, fighting over influence, right? You can maybe mention that it has nothing to do with ideology. These two countries, they just don't like each other. They can be both democratic or both communist, and they can still have a lot of differences. It's not because you are communist, that's why I'm targeting you. It's just simply because I think you are a stronger country than me, and therefore I'm very afraid of you. That means the tension, the Cold War, is because one country is afraid of the other, or one country don't like the other country. It's nothing to do with whether you are the communist, you are a democracy. I just don't like you because you are stronger and you are a threat. Okay? That means you can imagine if USA is a communist country, USSR is a communist country, they can have a Cold War also. In fact, in reality, USSR is communist, China was communist. In the 60s and 70s, even though they are both communists, the USSR and China, actually, they did not have a very fantastic relationship. They have kind of their own Cold War going on also. So you can actually fight, even though you have ideological differences. You are not fighting because of ideological difference. You may have the same ideology, but you can still fight. So basically, you need to explain that all the Cold War, all the conflict that they have maybe after the war, it has nothing to do with ideology. It's really about something else. Okay, then you can therefore disagree that the Cold War was not solely about a clash of ideology. It was also about a lot of other things. Okay, the Cold War, so I add on, the Cold War was also about a lot of other things, not just a clash of ideology. You basically need to prove that there are other things that are involved, and therefore it's not solely about clash of ideology. Then you can end up as your conclusion. Okay, this is a rather long video. I hope you understand some of the points. All these points I mentioned, right? Please write it out in a full scale. Don't write it in the box here. The box here are just for you to plan. Okay, I want you to learn to write it in a paragraph form, because in the exam, you're not going to get all these boxes to help you phrase your answer. Okay, so write on the full sketch neatly so you get a feel of how it looks like. Okay, looking forward to your work. Please give it a good try, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.